Similarly, if somebody retweets you, if someone goes out and shares something of yours on Twitter to their audience, it's a lovely opportunity to say thank you for the retweet. But if we just say thank you for the retweet, that's kind of bland and boring and dull, isn't it? The other half of that could actually be asking them something related or asking them something about themselves again. And this one is if you're feeling particularly strategic. If, having had a little rummage through Twitter, you realise there's 2 or 3 key people maybe in your area and you really like to get on their wavelength, you really like to be on their radar. If they're on Twitter and they're tweeting out regularly, why not do a little bit of stalking and actually watch what they're tweeting and start responding to it or sharing it to your audience? You will very quickly get onto their radar that way, but in a good way, because if you're responding positively, if you're sharing their stuff on, that's all paying them a compliment. So it's a really nice way actually to start a relationship that could end up with you meeting for a coffee, for example, and building a working relationship from there. So great things can happen from little tiny seeds that are planted out in Twitter. Another way to increase your visibility is to take part in Twitter chats. Has anyone done any of this? Once.
Yeah. I ran and hid from it.
Oh, why did you do that?
It was a little bit overwhelming. It was like,
right.
Oh, what's it's just a bit scary.
Oh, do you think you might be tempted to go back?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. Now you're a more seasoned Twitter user, you might. The idea of Twitter chats is to get a group of people together to talk about a particular subject or a topic. You know, on Facebook you've got Facebook groups and that's where everyone clusters together to talk about something. On Twitter we don't have Twitter groups. This is kind of the closest that you can get. So the idea is that at an appointed time, at an appointed day, that is advertised usually in the profile of someone's Twitter account or on a Twitter feed, people will tweet out with a particular hashtag in the tweet, and hashtag is just a label with that symbol in front. It's nothing more exotic than that, so don't get worried about that. But it's a way of actually distinguishing the tweets that are about that subject just from the general noise that goes on out there in Twitter. So once again, if you put that particular hashtag into the search bar, you will bring up the conversation. Alternatively, if you use Hootsuite, you can actually dedicate a whole stream to a Twitter chat and just bring up what's going on in the Twitter chat. So, for example, on a Wednesday between 8 and 9 o'clock in Devon, we have Devon Hour, which basically means that you get a whole load of people who use Twitter, you get businesses and local people going onto Twitter at between 8 and 9 o'clock and chatting and asking each other about how the week's gone. And businesses, if they've got offers on, tend to talk about their offers. If someone comes into the chat who's never been in before, then the organiser of the chat, and there is one in every area, believe me, there's always someone who likes to organise these things, the organiser would encourage everybody else to follow them, would encourage everybody else to share their stuff out there. So you can see it's a very easy way for you to go and join in this conversation, network with other businesses and people in the area, get your stuff shared out there to a much wider audience for that particularly focused time than it otherwise would be. So that could be a really good use of an hour, or even if you can just get on there for 20 minutes within that hour during the week. If you look at any sort of stats for web traffic or Twitter count or anything after that, you would generally see a great big peak. But I have to say they are more effective probably the more times you go in and actually take part in them. Once is great, but if you can actually carry on doing it on a consistent basis, it's like networking that you do offline as well. The more consistent you do it, the better results you get. But that really might be a nice one to try. There are national ones that are based around subjects as well, like holistic health, and there's all sorts of mummy and parenting ones. But I really think for you and your areas, it'd be really nice to maybe try some of the local area chats. There is another tip that I didn't put in here that occurred to me when I was talking, so that's really crap of me. And that is to go and search for, just occasionally go and search for hashtag journo request. Has anyone done that before? Twitter is awash with journalists. It's where they get their stories from these days. And they tend to, when they're out there looking for someone to help them with their story, they tend to use this hashtag journo request. So if you put that in the search bar, it will come up with all the latest tweets that include that hashtag. Now, of course, some people have jumped on the bandwagon and they're using it for really spammy stuff and they're trying to promote themselves with this hashtag. But you do get genuine requests in there as well. So you'll get journalists wanting, I don't know, people who've recently travelled to Bermuda, or people who've tried this face cream, or students who are doing this. But occasionally they will ask for mums with children aged between, you know, this and this, or someone who's recently started a business or whatever else, because they've got a story to write. And very often it's freelancers that have got a story to write that they're then pitching to a magazine, or they've secured that article already. So I did this myself. I've not done it recently, I have to say, because I've had my head down doing stuff. But I was doing this a lot, say this time last year. And it's quite funny because I saw a journo request come up that was for someone who'd done some work to their house, but they had to have children between specific ages. And of course, having 6, that's really easy for me because they just kind of span 6 to 18. So that was a nice, easy one. So I jumped onto it. Oh, we hadn't done any major work, we had a conservatory fitted, but that was enough, it turns out. So I ended up with this tiny little piece in House Beautiful about how we'd taken out this ridiculous loan, that's another story, to build our conservatory, and how I would have done it differently had I known better. So it's not an article that I'm particularly proud of, and it's only tiny. But that journalist then got an article agreed that was going to go into the Sunday Observer about using store cards, so the Tesco cards and the Boots cards. And because she'd met me, only over the phone, and knew of me having all those children, she knew that I would probably be an avid user of store cards, which I am. So when it came to writing this article, which was December last year, she actually called me up. I didn't have to do anything, and she said, you know, would you like to be featured in this article? And you will also get a free family portrait because they're sending a photographer around. So I did. So we were basically talked about in an entire one-page article, which I think is probably a little bit of overkill, quite frankly, that came out in the Observer on Sunday, and then it came out again in the Guardian that week with a photo as well. Now, it's not directly related to my business, but you know, you're still getting the word out about you, you're getting your name recognised, and that was completely free PR, and that was from the journo request hashtag. So it is worth looking out for. Oh, that was just an example, going back to our Devon Hour example, but for some reason metal screen grabs haven't come up very well. But you can go on and have a little search through for tweets that have got your local hashtag in and see what the conversations look like. Because the tweets will still be there, they don't go away. They might have gone off the bottom of your news feed, but if you go and have a search for them, you'll still find them there, and you'll find what I'm talking about. I had to throw this one in here because it happened to me just this week. And this is all about me, you know, when I was saying about it doesn't have to be just your content that you post on Twitter, but when it is, and when it is stuff that people like seeing, which is very often images and the like, and it's an attractive image, you can get a really big response. And this blew me away, because I was on the beach last Sunday, as I very often am, because I don't live very far away from there. So I took a couple of pickies of the beach, and I shared them out on Facebook on my personal timeline, as I very often do. And I got about 10 likes and 3 comments or something, so I thought, okay, that's fine. And I just threw them onto Twitter as well, because I'd sort of forgotten to put them up there on Twitter. Even though I say all this stuff, sometimes I forget to do it as well. So I'd forgotten to put my engaging content up on Twitter for the day. So I shoved these up on Twitter, and honestly, within a couple of hours, I just had masses of retweets, including Devon Life, which is a really high-profile magazine down near us, and 2 other magazines since have also retweeted these photos. So you'll see I actually got 30 likes, which is now what they call favourites on Twitter. I got 14 clicks just through to my profile because people wanted to find out more about me. I got 9 retweets and 9 detail expands, which is where people look at your profile in more detail, and I got 7 comments back. And in total, I had 3,000 impressions. And again, that's not directly to do with my business, but it's to do with me going out there and talking about the area in which I work. And we are all quite possessive about our areas. We all support them, don't we? So actually sharing something, maybe a lovely photo like that, or some news about something to do with your local area, can stand you in really good stead with the local community. They absolutely love it. And that just goes to show how powerful it could be. And I got far more response out on Twitter than I ever did on Facebook, which is really interesting, so I would have expected it to be the opposite. So there we go. That's worth snapping the odd picture as we whiz around doing what we do and just sharing it out there, because people love pretty pictures. Facebook. Who's using Facebook then? Expecting everybody to raise their hands. Good. And why are we on Facebook? Well, A, I think because it's slightly more intuitive for a lot of us to use, isn't it? And B, the coverage, the numbers. Of all the UK adults who are online, so that's adults 18 and above, not counting the masses of teenagers that are out there online, of all the UK adults who are online, 97% of them have got a Facebook account. So we know that pretty much everybody who's going to go online actually has a Facebook account. So that's one very good reason to be using Facebook. Coverage is massive. However, who has experienced this with the algorithm? So it used to be that what the stuff you put out on your business page, when you actually shared something on your business page, it got a pretty decent response, didn't it? And people actually used to comment and see it and all that malarkey. And then about a year ago, Facebook decided to change all that, didn't they? And they brought in this lovely new algorithm that means that only 5% of the people that like your business page generally get to see any of your posts nowadays, which is a bit of a pain in the backside because it isn't helping our business to get the word out. And visibility is what it's all about. So we have to work really hard these days on our Facebook pages. You can still get organic reach, as I'm sure you are seeing. You can still get responses, but we have to really work hard to be posting the stuff the Facebook deems to be quality content. And how they judge quality content is the response it gets from the people that it's hitting. So the more response you get, unless it's loads of people complain to Facebook, of course, that's not going to be deemed as quality content. But the more response you get to the stuff that you post on Facebook, then the more of your stuff Facebook will share out there, because it will say, yeah, you know, you're hitting your audience with stuff that they like, they're liking it, they're commenting on it, they're sharing it. Let's show more of your stuff to more of that audience. Because Facebook is all about now giving its users, i.e. people who are on there just scrolling or whatever, a quality experience. So if they don't get that quality experience, then they beetle off to another social network, and then Facebook advertisers aren't going to pay Facebook any money to advertise. So it's in Facebook's interest to keep the users happy, which is why they will look at you and judge you as to whether you're sharing good content or not. So the more we can get people to respond to our stuff, the better. So how can we get people to respond to what we post out there?
Some questions.
Yeah, questions work well. Especially when it's something like, do you prefer A or B? Because then that's a really nice, easy thing for people to just, like on their mobile, go A, B, whatever it is. But people do like being able to give feedback and give their opinion, for sure. So questions work really nicely. And we also obviously know that images work brilliantly on Facebook, don't we? And yeah, videos are absolutely huge on Facebook. And looking at all the predictions, and this is also Facebook's ambition as well, Facebook is very shortly going to overtake YouTube in terms of video views and the amount of video that's actually uploaded and viewed regularly. That's the way it's looking. Facebook, basically, as far as I can make out from reading the blogs and listening to the experts, it's going to be big in publishing stories, so it's tying up with some big media moguls already.